So let's start with the next one. It's saying that team would like to change the user interface of their web page, and they want to change the composer. The composer is the one where users write a post. So they want to change and replace with a like an Instagram feature, where instead of box they will like to add a plus button at the bottom of the page. So instead of having a composer, they want to replace with a plus button so that user can use to write a post. So the question is, how would you test if this is a good idea or not? So again, reiterate the question. The company or a team wants to change the user interface of the composer, where typically user write a post, to a plus button at the bottom of the page. So if a user click on this plus button, they can write the post. So the question is, we wanted to check whether this is a good idea or not to introduce a plus button instead of a composer. How would you check? So again, make sure that if ask any of the clarifying questions with the interviewer, so that you are clear with the problem statement, and if you want to use any kind of assumptions before defining the goal or hypothesis. So let's assume that you have asked all the clarifying questions. So let's define the goal or the objective of this case study. So I can say that the goal of this project is to change the web interface or the user interface of composing post. The task is to replace the box with a plus button icon at the bottom of the page, and the business value is that this will increase the user look and feel, and it should be easy and faster to create the post. So the objective is to evaluate whether this is a good idea or not. So once you have defined the goal, the next step is to provide or write the hypothesis. Now hypothesis is very important because that will help in understanding whether how to evaluate this new feature. So we can mention some of the hypotheses would be that is this number of posts. So let's say after introducing this plus button, is the number of posts are increasing or not from each type of user, whether it's an active user or a passive user. So one could be this one, whether this new feature is leading to increasing the engagement of the users or not. Another could be how easy to search the plus button for the users, and especially the new users on the web page. Another important thing is how fast this plus button is responding to create the post. Another important thing is how elegant it looks, and it should not affect the overall look of the page. Then obviously, what are the qualitative feedback we are getting from the user in terms of rating, star rating or comment. And another thing is, what is the color of the plus button? Is it easy to find the button or not on the web page? And what should be a good color or an elegant color to have on the web page? So these are some of the hypothesis questions we can provide and explain to the interviewer. So once you have defined the hypothesis, the next thing is to define what are the metrics we will use to evaluate this hypothesis. So I can say that how many total number of posts or engagements are happening before and after the introduction of a plus button. And we can use some kind of a trends on the line chart to see if there is an increase in the number of posts or decrease in the number of posts after introduction of the plus button. The next metric we can use how much time or an average it executes or responds to create a post. So for example, when somebody click a plus button, how many milliseconds or seconds is taking to create a post, and find the average time it responds at different time periods in a day. So for example, we can select like from 0 to 8, from let's say 12 a.m. to 8 a.m. how many milliseconds or seconds it's taking on an average. Similarly, we can create another bucket of 8 a.m. to 4 p.m. then 4 p.m. to 12 p.m. how well it's responding. Then how much time on average for new users to find the button and create the post. It's very important. Maybe for old users it can be easy to find that button, but maybe for new users, how much time on an average it's taking them to find the button and create the post. The qualitative analysis like total number of positive or negative comments, similarly number of star rating related to the placement of buttons, its colors and look and feel, and how much time and on an average it takes for existing user to create the post. This is also interesting because if existing users are not liking the new change, then it's again also a problem with our loyalty customers. Once you have defined the metric, the next part is how will you going to implement this new feature. So I can say that, hey, for that I will use a A/B testing. So A/B testing will be, we can evaluate the performance of this plus button or a new feature through A/B testing. This can be done by selecting 10% of the test users. So this test users should be diverse and should be range from different age groups, geography, new users, active users, old users. They should not, this 10% should be as diverse as possible, as random as possible, and they should not fall into any kind of a selection bias. Now this new button will only be shown to those users which are the part of this 10%, and we can monitor and track the performance through some top priority metrics, such as how much on an average it takes for any user to create the post, how fast this plus button responds, and some of the feedback through comments and the star rating, some like qualitative. And we can experiment this A/B testing for, let's say, for 3 to 6 weeks, and we can see that whether those metrics exceeded the benchmark or not. If they have exceeded the benchmark and meet the business requirement, business expectation, then we can go ahead and replace the text box with the plus button for all the set of users. The next part of this case study would be this plus button. These are the challenges we can face in this whole approach. So this plus button should be placed on a page in such a way that it should be visible. It should be clearly visible and should be easy to access. Else it can give a bad user experience and might cannibalize the user base and might move to competitors, because it might happen that users say that, hey, this new feature is very boring, not very user friendly, and it might happen that this itself start reducing the user engagement of the users, and they might feel that it's better to move to a different competitors because their web page or their features are much more user friendly as compared to what they are seeing with the introduction of a new feature. So finally, the conclusion, what you are concluding with the whole your case study. So the conclusion would be the goal is to replace the text button so that it's easy for user. It should be user friendly and should give a good user experience. This new feature should be evaluated through A/B testing and measured through some top priority metrics. And once this metric has exceeded the expectation, then only it should be executed for all the 100% of the users in the production environment. And at last, we should be very careful about the drawbacks and the challenges, because if not implemented properly, then it might result in in cannibalizing some of the user base for us. So as you can see, the end-to-end analysis of the case study. So the important thing is that because there is no right or wrong answers to any of the case study, but make sure that you should create a structure or a organization for your solution, the way I have created in the case study, where I created all the sections and presenting my thought process and the details. Similarly, when you get questions like that, make sure that you properly creating a template and the structure to your solution, so that it's easy to communicate, is easy to understand, and is easy to create an engagement between you and the interviewer, so that interviewer should be very, very completely convinced with your solution.